Hi, I'm Eric Wiskes, and welcome to CBD 101 from Get Me Some Green. This evening we're just going to talk some high-level stuff about CBD, what it is, where it comes from, and how it's processed. I hope this helps identify what it is. I wanted to start with a brief introduction of the falsehood of marijuana and hemp in general. This is a video back from 1934. It's just a trailer, but I wanted to just use this as an example of how our society thinks about marijuana and hemp today.
These high school boys and girls are having a hop at the local soda fountain. Innocently they dance. Innocent of a new and deadly menace lurking behind closed doors. Marijuana, the burning weed with its roots in hell. In this film you will see the ease with which this vicious plant can be grown in your neighbor's yard, rolled into harmless looking cigarettes, hidden in an innocent shoe or watch case. In this startling film, you will see dopesters lure children to destruction. We're going over to Joe's place. Why don't you come along? We have a date to play instead of double. Oh, you can play anytime. Come on, we'll have some laughs. Can I go along with you? Sure. Hey, I'll see you at dinner, sis.
If you want a quick smoke, try one of these.
You will meet Bill, who once took pride in his strong will as he takes the first step toward enslavement.
Of course, if you're afraid.
Smoking the soul-destroying reefer, they find a moment's pleasure, but at a terrible price. Debauchery, violence, murder, suicide. And the ultimate end of the marijuana addict. Hopeless insanity. See this important film now, before it is too late.
Reefer madness. And that's how people thought of marijuana back in the day, and how that mentality has been carried over generation, especially in our politics. So with that said, I wanted to dive right into Get Me Some Greens and interpretation of what CBD is, and again, just a kind of high level. This is our safe harbor statement. I'm not a doctor. I did go to chiropractic school for a couple of years. Wanted to switch careers, and led me to where I am today. My wife and I had formed Get Me Some Green. I always wanted to form a hemp store. My wife always wanted to do an apothecary. So thus we have Get Me Some Green Apothecary. So I wanted to start with just some of the history. So you saw a little bit of the Americanized history of what they think marijuana and cannabis and hemp are or is. Cannabis dates back thousands of years before Christ, probably even way before that. Probably even caveman times, if you think about it correctly. Really started in, probably Egypt was kind of where it first originated, or where we first have identifying. So if you see the hieroglyphics here, you can see the formation of the cannabis flower and leaf from the plant. So originating in China originally, way back when, for a variety of health issues, from gout to stress, relaxation, to help ease their mind after a hard day's work in the rice fields. From there, it started moving into India, where the strains started separating a little bit because you have different environments and how they grew it. From India, it started trailing into Africa and Europe. And from there, it started mixing the two Sativa and Indica strains. Separating them out and then actually starting to form them together to form a whole nother complex compound of strains with the different pieces. From there, in about the 1500s or so, it started being traded to Americas for coffees and teas. And American farmers started using it, particularly for textiles, and also integrated into their food. So when they started first using it, they used it for medicine, textiles, paper, hundreds and thousands of uses for it. And we'll get into that in just a little bit. But as it went through the Americas and as we came into our present day of like Congress and George Washington times, George Washington actually had his own industrial hemp farm. And again, used it for all those textiles and clothing. So you'll see an old sample of the $10 bill. And if you see here on the left-hand side, this is actually agricultural industrial hemp that they're farming. And then going into the industrial age, using that and then producing all the different pieces for war and everything else under the sun. So this actually this $10 bill was actually made of hemp back in the day. So they're using it for paper as well. So that's just a little history and overview. So know your cannabis. I briefly talked about the two different strains and how they started interacting with one another. So from more of the marijuana aspect, you've got two different strains. You've got Sativa and Indica. And now they've actually combined these as well as science has really come about in the modern day age. So Sativa is kind of a taller, slimmer, long and thin plant. It gives you a kind of a head high, makes you more alert. It's more uplifting, so it's something you want to, partake in during the day. You'll also find some increased energy. Whereas the indica is going to be a shorter bush, fatter leaves. It gives you more of a body high. It's great for relaxation. Helps your appetite. So if you're a cancer patient, you're really having a hard time eating after chemo. Medical marijuana on the indica side is great for that because it'll help your appetite and have them eat. It's great for a sleep aid and some pain relief too. And that's why you see it become more popular as far as the medical marijuana piece in all the states today. So you don't want to be smoking this at noon and then you'll be passed out by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So what is CBD? So cannabidiol or CBD is a phytocannabinoid compound found in agricultural hemp. That's the actual definition of what it is. It's most abundant, it's non-psychoactive, meaning there's little to no THC in it, so it's not going to get you high, we're going to get you healthy, okay? From that aspect, it is legal in all 50 states and has been ever since the 2014 Farm Bill. Now they just released, and President Trump just signed the 2018 Farm Bill, and Heather knows a little bit more about this. She's been doing a lot of research on it. And basically what they're allowing now is the legalization of growing it in all 50 states. So from there, we'll get into that just a little bit later. CBD has little to no side effects and also so basically you can take a little bit more as needed based on your ailment. And it's not a drug. That's the one big thing the big misconception is it's not marijuana, it's the other side of the plant. So you've got cannabis, you've got industrial hemp, and you've got marijuana. Marijuana is going to be high in THC. Your industrial hemp is going to be high in CBD. So back in about the 60s, 70s, during the Woodstock time, those levels were a lot more equal. So you were still getting high, but not as high as you can get today with the super strains that are out there. But then you're also getting some of the health benefits too from those early plants back in the day. We have some pictures in our store as well that identify kind of what the plant looks like.
CBD has definitely come a long way.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Just a little history about CBD. In the 1930s, it was still used in medicine, and a lot of doctors had cannabidiol or cannabis in a lot of the pain meds. The reason it became illegal is when tobacco industry came to the United States, the farmers were really trying to push the tobacco industry because they saw it as a new revenue stream. But the slaves, because slavery was really prominent at the time, they were working these fields. They didn't want them to smoke the product. So they said, go smoke that. That being hemp. So here's the slaves smoking hemp, and they're working in the fields all day with tobacco, never having a back pain, never getting sunburned. They don't get sick. They don't have cancer. They're always in a good mood. Well, why is that? Now all of a sudden they've got a competing product, but they're trying to boost this. All their money was in tobacco. So the Beasley Company, which we still know of Beasley Media today, put out papers and documentation saying, hey, well, what if we associated hemp with slavery? Then people won't want it. They'll want our tobacco. That's how Reefer Madness came to be. So Reefer Madness, it started as a news article saying, you don't want to smoke with the slave smoke, the demon weed, the marijuana. It's not even spelled the same as it is today. So then they put out this whole media to change people's minds. That's where Reefer Madness came from. Now, it wasn't illegal at this time, but it was demonized. So doctors immediately started pulling the medicine off their shelves, and people stopped using it for medicinal purposes because they didn't want to be classified with slaves. I don't want to be classified with a black person or a Mexican person. So that's how that all started. So fast forward now to the 70s. Now in the meantime, scientists were still looking at it and studying the research because we're still learning about plant-based medicine at this point. But it was taboo to have it any longer. That's why we have some of the antique medicine bottles here to show you that cannabis used to be part of our everyday medicine. So fast forward to the 70s, it became illegal because lobbyists and big farm didn't want people to know about it because scientists had already discovered, well, wait a minute, it does all of these things. They knew there were receptors in our body. They didn't know what those receptors were called yet. And we'll go into that later into the presentation. But when they made it illegal, just like when alcohol became illegal with prohibition, alcohol didn't used to be 120 proof or 80 proof. It was just alcohol. You'd have a glass, you had a good time. But once they made it illegal, during prohibition, they started making stronger grain alcohols so that you could do a quick shot, get the benefit, and no one will know because it was illegal. The same thing happened with marijuana. So they started making strains that were so high in THC that they're actually 82% THC and only 18% CBD. So fast forward to where we are today, the street pot you have today runs roughly between 75 and 85% THC, which is why when you hear people that used to smoke in the 60s and 70s say, the weed back then, they could smoke a whole cigarette and they were fine, and it was great because it was 50 CBD, 50% THC. Right. So you got a little of the psychotropic effect and a little CBD. But the fact of the matter is you can't get high when you have high levels of CBD. It levels you out. So they were getting both effects. Now you take one hit of what we have today, you will be sitting on a couch and drooling for a little while because it's so high in THC. So that's really how we got to where we are today and why it's so important to understand that CBD is really the medicinal piece inside the marijuana plant.
Yeah, and we're fascinated by the history, and that's why we have the apothecary with all the old bottles, as Heather said, just because we're both like fascinated of where we've come. I mean, you look at some of the stuff, there's a gelatin-covered cannabis sativa, and that's the same thing that we have on our shelf today for the most part, which is really funny when you think about it. So kind of comparing the two, we get these questions a lot as well. So CBD, it will not get you high. It doesn't have that psychotropic effect. It's not crossing that blood-brain barrier where you're gonna feel that effect. And it's different receptors as well. We'll get into that later in the presentation as well. CBD can actually reduce your appetite to help you lose weight. So that's a big benefit. And it is legal in all 50 states, regardless of what anybody tells you or what you hear on the news or fake news. So CBD can also help reduce anxiety, stress. We have a whole gamut of things that it's good for: inflammation, PTSD. The list really goes on, and they're discovering new cannabinoids to this day that they're still discovering that'll help different ailments in the future. So can't wait to see what happens next. And then CBD can also promote wakefulness. This is what you were talking about. You had more energy. It's because your whole system is operating together. Now on the flip side, you've got THC. So it is going to give you that high feeling. It's going to give you that psychotropic effect. It'll increase your appetite versus CBD. So once you partake in it or eat it or however you're consuming it, will help your appetite, so great for cancer patients. THC right now is legal in 29 states. Now, recreationally, it's only legal in about 7 or 8. But the number's growing, but most of these are medical marijuana, including the District of Columbia, which is actually kind of funny if you think about it. THC can also cause anxiety, versus CBD reducing it, so you get a little nervous, you get a little anxious about stuff. And THC can also be used as a sleep aid as well. So some of the things, so you'll see all these different ailments that you see notice the green square is almost next to every one of them except a increased appetite and antimicrobial. As well, and then you've got THC, which, helps certain things, but not all of them. So you'll just really see the benefits of what CBD has for your health and your overall dietary supplement. So getting into the receptors a little bit, Cb1 is mainly found in the brain. So that's really going to control a lot of your moods, your appetites, and some of your pain management as well. And then your CB2 are mainly found in your immune system. So the one piece with the Cb1 receptors is going to be more your central nervous system. So it's really going to hit a lot of those pain points that you have, your knees, your arthritis in your ankles, your elbows, your back, your neck, your shoulders, and also with some of the pain, emotions, mood, and thinking. So that's why CBD helps you with that anxiety and some of those different aspects that we keep talking about. And with the CB1, that's the one where THC is really going to affect you, because that's where you're hitting the psychotropic aspect. CB2 are more of the immune system, so it's going to hit more of the cells and more of the body pieces in your body to keep you healthy and keep you going and keep your body talking to each other. A little bit more on the receptors. So you'll kind of see the whole system throughout the body. So as we talk about the CB1 and CB2, so again, CB1 is going to receive that THC molecule, whereas the CB2 receptors receive the CBN or CBD molecules and receptors. So you're talking about gastro disorders, Crohn's disease, nausea, appetite loss, PTSD, Parkinson's, and seizures is really going to be that CB1 receptor. So basically what CBD does is when it gets into the body, it's naturally going to connect to those endocannabinoids within your body that have been there the whole entire time. And enhancing those, it's not taking over those receptors, it's actually enhancing those receptors themselves. So it's going in and it's helping repair that connection between the two so they can talk to each other, okay? Now, you can get CBD in other forms and other endocannabinoids. You can get it in different foods like chocolate, truffles, some veggies, but the amounts that are in those products are not going to be nearly as much as what you get from a
10
CBD.
to 10,000.
Yeah.
So a bar of chocolate
10 to
has about
10,000.
10 units.
Mm-hmm.
So CBD has 10,000
Exactly.
units.
So the goal obviously is balance. All right. So back in 1992, they actually discovered that we have this ECS system, the endocannabinoid system. And what that does, it's cannabinoid receptors, self-made, much like cannabis is, right? But the compounds are already found in the body with these enzymes. So the problem with, as Heather said, kind of with some of the diet back in the day, and as time went on, it got leached out of our diet and out of our foods and out of the things that it would be going into. So we lost that supplement. We lost that ability to regulate our body system. Okay. So what the ECS does is it's basically your whole system within your body that helps regulate all the other systems, right? So I always like to use this example. If you think of an orchestra and you've got the conductor, what if you took that conductor out of the orchestra? You got, you're all over the place. Now put the conductor back in, i.e. CBD, or put that CBD back in your body. Now you've got perfect harmony, right? So it's going to help regulate all those systems and keep you healthy longer, right? So with these receptors, when we say balance, we mean homeostasis, okay? That's maintaining the internal environment, fluctuations within the body. So if something's not operating correctly, we take our CBD supplement, it's going to help regulate and fix those aspects. So your back, for example, I have a bad back, a bad knee. So it's going to help with some of those pain receptors and decrease some of that inflammation because they're aware of what's going on within your body on those aspects. So again, it's going to keep healthy people healthy longer, okay? So some of the science, I don't want to bore you with too much of the science aspect, but you'll see some of the different pieces between it. Between THC and CBD, The differences are very slight, but just different enough where it's going to give you those different chemical reactions within the body. So some of the things that are also found within CBD and cannabinoids, fatty acids, terpenes. Terpenes is a big question I get a lot. They're actually found in a lot of flower-based plants and other plants that are around, which offer the flavors. So that's why different marijuana strains or different CBD strains can have different flavors, because they're enhancing it with that. So as science goes through, you can pick out the different pieces that you want more of a citrus flavor, you want more of a pepper flavor. So you can pick out those different plants and almost crossbreed and do it that way. So when we talk the hempturage effect, it's using the whole plant. So you're getting more compounds, you're getting more of the vitamin D, the natural pieces if it's grown outside. You're gonna get all those biochemical matrices going into the body, and you'll be able to supplement more and more as you go on. Now, what to look for in quality CBD, we vet all of our vendors out to make sure that they're doing third-party testing. So really the big thing is fully traceable. We want to make sure that we know where the plant is being grown, where it's going to, how it's being processed, how it's generated and built into the pills and flowers and soft gels and gummies that you see today. Do they have a great, state-of-the-art laboratory? What kind of extraction method are they using? There's a couple different methods out there right now. We have one that's a CO2 extraction. We have two that are ethanol extracted. There's a new study out now where they're trying to do a water-based extraction, which really, in my view, would be the best option, because you're just going to be taking the water molecules to get everything out of the plant. So you're going to be able to get more of it out and in different qualities and quantities. So you'll be able to discover those new cannabinoids that we haven't really discovered just yet. In our organic age today, a lot of people are going towards organics. I know I have. So we want to make sure they're non-GMO, make sure that the fields are being regenerated by the plant. We'll get to that in just a minute. And then obviously just responsible ethics. We don't want to, there was a study that I saw a doctor online had done. She took 50 of the different CBD products and labeled them out and tested them at a fourth party to see which ones were accurate and which ones weren't. Half of the list either had no CBD in it or were a lot less than what they were claiming. So I'm happy to say that the 3 vendors that we deal with and the couple that we're vetting out have all met those standards, and we've double checked and triple checked. So
it's one of the reasons why we take our time, because we actually send them out for 4th and 5th party testing to make sure they meet our standards, because we do work with the medical community so heavily.
Yeah. So I talked a little bit about the fully traceable. So I wanted to just take you through real quick about a couple of the steps and where it's coming from, right? How it's grown. So you're basically growing, and then you're going to be harvesting, right? So the plant looks like this. A little bit different than your marijuana plant, which might be short and stout, depending on, indica or sativa. But really the industrial hemp, it looks more like a bamboo plant. I mean, they can grow up to 15, 20 feet tall. So imagine chopping down the whole plant and utilizing that whole thing. So you can get the CBD out of the leaves and the flowers that are growing on the top, and then you can use the stalks for other things like fiber. And so there's so many different uses. We think of it as one example, a gentleman said to me, think of it as like a grilled cheese sandwich, right? You can make your grilled cheese, but you can process your cheese. You can do that and you can send it out, and then you can sell individual slices, and then you can go make your sandwich, and then you can sell that as well, and different breads and everything like that. But it's a great example of the many different uses, the different ways you can do it, and also from a monetary standpoint. So if you're a business like we are, or if you're a grower and a processor, you can grow it, you can process it, and then you can also distribute it and sell it. And then on top of that, you can make your grilled cheese sandwiches and sell those as well, right? So there's a lot of different revenue streams that you can do from this business.
But there's a very important part about CBD or hemp that people don't understand. It takes 7 years to repair the soil damage we've done to our food. So I'm sure you've heard that they say food nowadays doesn't have the same nutrients it used to. It's because we're not rotating our crops the way that we used to, and we're forcibly using chemicals to rid ourselves of pests. But some of those pests are actually necessary. Believe it or not, bug poop helps plants. So getting rid of all the bugs has actually hurt our growing supplies. So now with the new farm bill, farmers are going to be able to rotate hemp crops with edible crops and re-put those nutrients back in the soil, because just like tomatoes pull this from the soil, hemp puts it back in and pulls something different. So that's a really valuable thing. So not only is this law going to help us from the hemp industry, but it's going to help farmers in the agricultural industry too. But what's really important about it is not only the way it grows, but hemp leaches, okay? It's a leach. This is really important. The reason why you can't just grow hemp tomorrow and start using it is because it's leaching toxins from the soil. So when you take a farm that used to use a pesticide, or perhaps they grew tobacco, it takes 7 years of growing and cutting to leach all of those chemicals out of the soil so that it's productive for nutrition again. So the farmers that we partner with have taken the time. Does that mean they've wasted 7 years of growing? No, and that's what Eric's trying to talk about. Instead of using it for medical or food grade, we've got paper, we've got clothing, we've got plastic, we've got oil, we've got all these different options. Think of it this way, it takes over 50 years for one tree to grow to produce paper. One tree, one 50-foot tree, only produces 50 reams of paper. So 50 years for 50 reams. You can take that same amount of time and grow hemp and have over 50,000 reams of paper in 1 year.
Wow.
Yeah.
So just to give you an idea of how versatile this plant actually is.
And we'll touch a little bit more on that too in just a minute. So from the harvest standpoint, so they're chopping it down, they're drying it out, they're flipping it upside down so all the oils and compounds get soaked into the flowers and the leaves and the main part of what they want to use CBD for. Next, they're gonna extract it. They're gonna put it either through a CO2 facility and extraction and push that CBD out of it, or they're gonna take an ethanol and they're gonna soak it in, and then they're gonna whip it out and get all that CBD oil and start separating it that way. So there's a couple different ways to do it. With CV Sciences, they do CO2 extraction. So once the CO2 is extracted from an oil standpoint, they get it into their laboratory, and then they test it, make sure that it contains all the cannabinoid content that they are looking for, and the certain strains as well. And then they want to do that third-party testing too. They're going to test it internally, and then they're going to send it out to make sure that they're good to go, right? And get documentation for that. And we provide that to our customers as well, and our clients. So from there, they're going to convert it. This is where they're going to really take it out and put it into the different compounds or concentrations, or flavors, or vape versus a caramel versus a gummy versus a capsule, right? So however they're going to formulate it, that's what they're going to start doing with that process and that raw CBD once they get it. From there, they package it up and they distribute it out to people like myself to get it to the consumer. So just a little bit of difference on the comparing hemp, indoor to outdoor growing cannabis. So there's goods and bads on both sides, right? So outdoor growing, you're, like as Heather was mentioning, you're sequestering the CO2, you're replenishing the earth, you're leaching all the, pardon my French, crap out of the soil that's been put in there over the years, whether it's tobacco or other vegetables or whatnot. It's environmentally helpful. It requires 80% less water because it's outside. You're getting natural rain, you're getting natural wetness. Sun powered, so there's no artificial light sources, so you're saving on energy that way. One of the great things that I see with a lot of growers that they're doing is they're just getting solar fields, and that's either powering their outside pieces, whatever they may need, and then also the indoor. We'll get to that in 1 second. And so basically, you're not talking about any pesticides or fertilizers. So textbook sustainable, and that's really what you want for this type of plant in this green environment that we really need to get to. Now, indoor grown medical cannabis, that's where you really find the indoor is going to be much better. You don't want bugs crawling all over your medical grade flower that you're growing inside. But however, it's a little bit more damaging, right? You're gonna utilize your power grid. The water demands are astronomical. If you're not near a pure water source, it's going to be very taxing. And then, you're not going to be using a lot of fertilizers or anything because you're going to be inside. It's going to be in a contained, environment. So you're not going to have a lot of those outside sources. I've also heard some other growers where they'll do a little combination of both. It'll be inside, but then maybe they'll open up the roof a little bit and get some of the natural sun in and some natural air to flow through, and then maybe close it up at night so their plants don't get attacked. So there's a couple different ways to go about doing it and growing it. But the carbon footprint, I think, is the big thing for some of the indoor growers that they need to pay attention to. And it's going to be a little bit more costly, right, in the long run for the consumer. We talk about a lot of the benefits of CBD. You're getting your essential fatty acids, your omega-3 fatty acids, great for just your overall health, right? We talked about the non-psychotoxic aspect, right? Doesn't get you high. The eco-friendly piece, food, fiber, building materials, fuel. There's 25,000 uses, and there's probably going to be more in the future as science keeps going and they keep experimenting more and more with it. And as Heather mentioned again, it sequesters that CO2 and kind of replenishes the earth. So the big benefits, anxiety, pain, inflammation, hormone imbalance, reduces mood, so it kind of balances you out. Some of these, I have to redo some of these. Nervous system health, helps sleep, and the big thing is the need for pills and replacing opioids, right? We talked, this is a little bit of an overview, but as we get into it, they now passed the 2018 Farm Bill, as we had kind of talked about. So that's really going to pave the way for a lot of these companies, a lot of the states to grow. You look at Colorado, California, Oregon, those are the top 3 for industrial hemp growers. You'll be shocked to hear that North Carolina is actually number 4 or 5 on that list. So we're up and coming as a North Carolina state, so that's really exciting. Originally from Chicago and Illinois, so I know Illinois is kind of up next on that because they had a lot of tobacco fields and a lot of corn fields. So they're going to be reproducing some of that. I have some friends here that are actually looking into that as well and converting some of their farmlands into industrial hemp. So, it is an evolution. We're growing. There's 4 phases of how an industry grows, not only in the stock market, but just as a company, as companies grow and small individual operations like myself, get me some green. But we're just now getting to maybe the tail end of phase 1. So we're on a huge upslope. So we still have 3 phases to go before it really knocks home. And by 2022, it's projected to be a $22 billion business. So it's really great for everybody and our health. So just a little bit more about us. We're an LLC. We have a professional division where we work with a lot of doctors, holistic doctors, chiropractors, massage therapists, and wellness centers. And we try to bring the benefits of cannabis